The sun dipped low over Maui's coastline, painting the sky in hues of coral and gold. Kai Nakamura stood barefoot on the warm sand, letting the waves lap at his feet. To an outsider, he had it all: a small but thriving tour business, a picturesque apartment overlooking the ocean, and Lani, the woman he loved. The kind of life that looked perfect in postcards, flawless in photos. Yet, as he watched the horizon, a nagging unease tugged at his chest, subtle and persistent, like the wind slipping through the cracks of a carefully closed window. Lani laughed in the kitchen behind him, a soft sound that should have brought comfort. Instead, it unsettled him. He remembered the way her eyes had flickered the last morning, a shadow he couldn't place. She had smiled, but there had been a hesitation, a brief pause too long to ignore. Kai shook his head, trying to push the thought away. "Maybe I'm just tired," he whispered to himself, scanning the beach where tourists lingered, oblivious of the tension simmering nearby. The apartment smelled faintly of tropical flowers and brewed coffee, an illusion of calm. Kai's hand lingered on the counter as he listened to Lani's voice carrying through the open windows. "Kai, you okay? You've been staring at the ocean for hours." He turned, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Yeah, just thinking about the new tour routes," he said, though the words tasted bitter on his tongue. Lani's smile faltered slightly, but she didn't press. She never did. That was part of the charm, the ease of their partnership. Yet even in her silence, there was a whisper of distance, a subtle reminder that paradise was only skin deep. Kai stepped onto the balcony, the wind tousling his hair. The city below buzzed with tourists snapping photos, unaware of the undercurrents of human emotion hidden in plain sight. He admired the way the sunset reflected on the waves, but part of him recoiled, feeling as if the colors were mocking him, masking the cracks beneath his carefully constructed life. The narrative of perfection had to be maintained, even if it meant ignoring the small inconsistencies, the lingering glances, the hushed phone calls Lani received when she thought he wasn't around. He remembered the first time they met on this very beach, laughter echoing across the sand, a memory bright enough to almost hurt. How easily love had felt like freedom, and how now, even the ocean seemed to conspire with his doubts. Lani appeared beside him, her hair catching the last light of the day. "Kai, are you listening?" she asked, voice soft but tinged with curiosity. "I'm listening," he replied, though the truth was he was listening for something else entirely. A clue, a sign, anything that might explain the sudden tightness in his chest and the shadow he felt lurking behind her eyes. She reached out and touched his arm gently, a gesture meant to reassure, but instead it ignited a mixture of desire and suspicion. They stood there in silence, the ocean's rhythm echoing a tension neither of them spoke aloud. For now, the mask of paradise held. But Kai knew deep down that masks couldn't last forever. Beneath the laughter, the sunsets, and the beachside serenity, something was stirring, a secret, invisible yet palpable, that would soon shatter the illusion of perfection. As night began to drape the island in its velvet darkness, Kai's gaze shifted to faint lights of distant houses. A chill ran down his spine, despite the warm tropical breeze. Something was coming, something that would break the paradise he and Lani had so carefully curated. He turned back to her, trying once more to anchor himself in the moment, unaware that the next day would unravel everything he thought he knew about love, loyalty, and trust. The paradise was a mask, and the cracks beneath it were only just beginning to show. The morning sun glimmered over the ocean, painting the waves in silver and blue, but Kai couldn't see it. His mind was tangled in suspicion, replaying the laughter from the night before, the hesitation in Lani's eyes, and the soft tone of her voice that didn't quite reach him. Something was off, though he couldn't name it yet. The island's beauty, which once calmed him, now felt oppressive, as if the paradise itself were conspiring to reveal secrets he wasn't ready to face. Kai sat cross-legged on the balcony, phone in hand, scrolling aimlessly. A string of notifications had appeared overnight, harmless at first glance. Messages from clients, reminders about tours. But then his thumb paused over a small, innocuous notification from Lani's social media account. He hadn't meant to open it, yet curiosity gnawed at him. A message preview lingered on the screen. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Miss you." His heart sank. There was nothing in the tone to suggest betrayal, yet the familiarity of it, the hidden intimacy, triggered a visceral unease. He shook his head, trying to rationalize it. Lani was free to have friends, to talk to people. But Kai's gut told him there was more, a shadow lurking behind her surfside smiles and morning coffee routines. The paranoia crept in slowly, subtly, like foam washing over sand, erasing clarity with each wave. "Morning, Kai," Lani said softly, emerging from the apartment with a tray of breakfast. Her hair was damp from her early swim, the scent of salt and hibiscus clinging to her skin. She placed the plate in front of him, smiling in a way that should have soothed him, yet it didn't. Kai looked up. "Morning," he said, voice tight. "Did you, go for a long swim?" "Just the usual," she replied, tilting her head slightly, eyes avoiding his. "Why?" "No reason," he muttered, stirring his coffee too quickly. But he noticed the way she fidgeted with her bracelet, twisting it repeatedly, as if trying to hide the tremor of guilt, or was it nervousness at being watched? The thought consumed him, gnawing at his composure. Later, while guiding a small group along a hidden coastal trail, Kai's attention was divided between the tourists and the gnawing suspicion in his chest. He smiled and gave directions, but his mind kept drifting to Lani, her laugh, her pauses, the strange glow of her phone screen whenever she thought he wasn't looking. The ocean whispered secrets, the wind carrying attention he could almost taste. When he returned home, Lani wasn't there. Her bag remained by the door, but her absence felt deliberate, heavy. Kai searched the apartment, moving methodically, checking drawers and shelves, not because he wanted to invade her privacy, but because the shadows behind the surf were growing darker and he needed answers. The apartment felt different in her absence, hollow, as if every object held a secret he hadn't yet uncovered. By mid-afternoon, he stepped onto the balcony again, scanning the horizon where the waves crashed relentlessly against jagged rocks. Something was coming, he sensed, something that would tear open the fragile mass of paradise. Shadows shifted beneath the waves, reflecting the unease he could no longer ignore. As dusk approached, a faint ringing from Lani's phone echoed through the apartment, her voice mail-light blinking insistently. Kai froze, realizing he had just begun noticing the cracks he had ignored before. Questions swirled, unspoken but urgent. Where has she been? Who is she meeting? And what is she hiding from me? The answers were out there, somewhere in the shadows behind the surf, waiting to surface. And Kai knew that the small unease he felt today would lead him down a path from which there was no return. Kai hadn't intended to meet Jonah that afternoon, but the weight of unease pressed him toward the familiar comfort of an old friendship. Jonah, a local officer and one of the few people who knew Kai's family history, ran a small surfboard rental near the pier. His easy smile and grounded presence usually helped Kai think clearly. Today, however, even Jonah's calm seemed overshadowed by Kai's restless mind. "Hey, Kai," Jonah said, wiping sand from his hands as he leaned against the counter. "Long day?" Kai forced a grin. "Yeah, just thinking about some new tour routes. You know how it is." He hesitated, studying Jonah's expression. "Actually, maybe I need some advice." Jonah raised an eyebrow. "Advice? That's dangerous coming from me," he said with a grin. But there was something in his tone that hinted he knew more than he let on. Kai ran a hand through his damp hair, struggling to find the right words. "It's about Lani. I can't shake this feeling something's off. Small things, little changes, and now I'm noticing shadows." His voice dropped, low, almost a whisper. "I don't know if I'm imagining it." Jonah's eyes softened, a brief shadow passing over his usually steady gaze. "You know, rumors travel fast here," he said carefully. "Nothing concrete, just whispers. But sometimes whispers, they carry the truth." Kai's stomach tightened. "What kind of whispers?" Jonah leaned closer, voice hushed. "Just that some relationships aren't what they appear. People you think you can trust, partners, friends, they sometimes hide things. Scandals, affairs. Stuff that can ruin everything if it gets out." The word struck Kai like a jagged wave. He wanted to laugh, to brush it off, but the idea lodged in his chest. It wasn't the first time he had heard murmurs of betrayals among friends in the community, but hearing it now, directed at his own life, felt like a collision with inevitability. "And what should I do?" he asked quietly, more to himself than to Jonah. Jonah shrugged, glancing out at the waves. "Watch. Listen. The ocean doesn't hide anything forever. Kai. Eventually, the tide brings secrets to the shore." Kai absorbed the advice in silence, staring at the horizon where surfers cut across sunlit waves. His mind churned. He thought of Lani, her smiles, her phone, her fleeting hesitation, and Jonah's words echoed, twisting through his anxiety like a cold current. Every laugh, every casual touch now seemed layered with hidden meaning. "Jonah," Kai began, voice trembling slightly. What if the person you love isn't who you think they are?" Jonah paused, studying him carefully. "Then you find out the hard way," he said softly. "Trust yourself, Kai. If something feels wrong, it probably is." The conversation lingered in Kai's mind long after he left the pier. The sun dipped lower, and shadows stretched across the sand, turning the familiar beach into a place of suspicion. Each crashing wave sounded like a warning. Each breeze carried hints of secrets yet to be uncovered. He realized that paradise could not shield him from the truth. Not forever. By the time he returned home, dust had begun to settle over Maui. Lani's apartment was quiet, though the faint glow of her phone light under the door suggested she had just been there. Kai stood at the threshold, hesitating. He wanted answers, yet feared the confrontation would shatter everything, even if it already felt broken. He exhaled slowly, trying to calm the storm within him. Shadows were gathering. Whispers carried through the wind and sea, and he knew he had no choice but to dig deeper. Somewhere, hidden behind the laughter and everyday routines, a secret waited, one that would soon erupt and change everything. The tide was rising, both on the shore and within Kai. He didn't yet know what he would find, but he could sense that nothing would ever be the same. The evening was unusually still, the kind of silence that presses against your chest and refuses to let go. Kai had returned to the apartment earlier than expected, a storm of anxiety and suspicion propelling him forward. He fumbled with his keys, the metallic clink echoing unnaturally in the empty hallway. Every instinct screamed that something was waiting inside, something he wasn't ready to face, yet could no longer avoid. The apartment smelled faintly of vanilla and the lingering traces of Lani's perfume. Kai's gaze fell on her phone, left carelessly on the kitchen counter. Something urged him forward, a dark curiosity he couldn't deny. Trembling, he picked it up. Unlocking it wasn't difficult. He knew her routines well enough, but the moment the screen lit up, his stomach twisted. A single photo in the gallery caught his eye. Lani and a man, wrapped in an intimate embrace, smiling like secrets were safe between them. Kai staggered back, almost dropping the phone. His heart pounded in his ears, each beat louder than the last. He recognized a man immediately. Ethan, a wealthy visitor who had been staying in a nearby villa. Lani's betrayal, once only a whisper of suspicion, now had a face, a tangible reality that he could neither ignore nor erase. The room seemed to constrict around him. Walls leaned inward, suffocating, and the sough from the refrigerator sounded like a mocking laughter. Kai sank onto the couch, hands shaking as he scrolled through more photos. Casual touches, stolen glances, hidden kisses. Every image was a dagger, twisting deeper into a wound he hadn't realized was still raw. You lied to me," he muttered, voice low and trembling. All this time, every word, every promise. Kai's anger bubbled into a scream, but no sound left his throat. He slammed the phone onto the counter, the vibrations echoing through the apartment. His mind raced, a relentless storm of betrayal, humiliation, and heartbreak. He could see their faces clearly, hear their laughter, smell the faint aroma of the villa that had once seemed like a harmless getaway. A sudden, sharp knock at the door made him freeze. He barely heard Lani call his name from the other side. "Kai, are you home?" He turned, eyes wild, voice raw. "Why?" he demanded, gripping the edge of the counter. "Why, Lani? Was it ever real?" There was silence. Then her voice, trembling and uncertain. "Kai? I don't," he snapped. "Don't lie to me. I saw everything." The confession caught her off guard. She stammered, words tumbling out in a panicked rush. But Kai barely heard them. His world had tilted off its axis. The betrayal was no longer abstract, no longer just a whisper or a shadow behind the surf. It was here, in the concrete reality of photographs and stolen moments. Kai stumbled to the balcony, needing the cool night air to steady his spiraling thoughts. The ocean below shimmered under the moonlight, waves crashing with a relentless rhythm, almost like the heartbeat of the island itself. But the beauty offered no solace. It only reflected the chaos within him. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think clearly, couldn't reconcile the paradise he had built with the deceit that now infiltrated every corner of his life. Minutes passed like hours. Kai's mind cycled between rage and despair, a roller coaster of emotions that threatened to consume him entirely. He realized with a sickening certainty that nothing would ever be the same. The person he had trusted most in the world had hidden a life beneath the surface, and the revelation demanded a response, one that would alter the course of his life irrevocably. Finally, he sank to the floor, back against the railing, staring blankly at the horizon. Somewhere in the darkness, a truth waited, dangerous and inevitable, and he knew he had confront it. But first, he had to understand it, to let it consume him entirely before the next step could unfold. The hidden truth had been revealed, and paradise was no longer safe. By morning, the island was buzzing. Social media had erupted overnight, and whispers Kai had tried to ignore now surged into every corner of Maui. Lani's name, once private and safe, appeared in posts and comments, her affair dissected by strangers with cruel curiosity. Kai scrolled through the endless stream of notifications, each one a sting to his already raw pride. He felt naked, stripped of the paradise he had built. "They're talking about you, about us," he muttered to himself, pacing the apartment. The sunlight streaming through the windows failed to warm him. The apartment felt smaller, the walls pressing inward, echoing the judgment he imagined in every comment and post. Lani appeared in the doorway, her expression a mixture of guilt and fear. "Kai, I didn't want this to happen. I never meant for anyone to know." Kai's laugh was bitter, almost hollow. "Didn't want it to happen? Lani, it's everywhere. The whole island knows. And you never stopped it. You hid it. You lied to me." His voice cracked with fury and despair, echoing against the walls like the pounding surf below. I didn't know it would spread like this," she whispered, tears pooling in her eyes. "I didn't mean to hurt you. You did hurt me," he shouted, grabbing the edge of the counter for support. His hands trembled. "Every day you were with him, I was blind. And now everyone can see it. Everyone knows the truth except me. Until now." The weight of humiliation pressed on him, suffocating, mingling with the sharp sting of betrayal. Outside, tourists strolled along the beach, oblivious of the storm inside the apartment, the personal catastrophe unfolding amid the island's postcard-perfect beauty. The juxtaposition made Kai feel even more isolated, as if he were living in a world where paradise itself mocked him. Jonah's words from earlier in the week came unbidden to his mind. "Watch. Listen. The tide brings secrets to the shore." Now, the tide had arrived, dragging with it the very truth Kai had dreaded. He couldn't escape it, couldn't pretend anymore. Lani reached for his hand, but he pulled away, pacing the balcony. "Why?" he demanded, voice low, trembling with both rage and heartbreak. "Why him? Why betray me like this?" "I don't know. I thought it was harmless," Lani said, voice quivering. "It wasn't supposed to hurt anyone. I didn't think it would." "Harmless?" he echoed, incredulous. "You call this harmless? Look at what it's done. Look at what it's doing to me." The city lights blinked to life below, reflected on the ocean's dark surface. Kai's eyes scanned the horizon, seeking answers that weren't there. Every moment of paradise now seemed tainted. Every laugh and touch from Lani turned into a dagger in his memory. The betrayal was no longer just between them. It was public, magnified, and relentless. The realization hit him like a wave. There was no turning back. He could not undo the exposure, could not reclaim the trust that had been shattered. His life, once contained and orderly, now felt like an open stage for public scrutiny. The weight of humiliation, betrayal, and rage pressed down, pushing him toward a decision he hadn't yet fully acknowledged. Kai retreated into the shadows of the apartment, seeking refuge in darkness. He needed to think, to plan, to breathe. Outside, the waves continued to crash, indifferent to the drama they witnessed nightly. The tide had brought the truth ashore, and there was no way to put it back. The world had seen Lani's betrayal, and Kai's paradise had crumbled. There was only one thing left to do: disappear. Kai didn't sleep that night. The apartment felt stifling, heavy with the weight of betrayal and exposure. Every corner seemed to mock him, every shadow a reflection of his anger. By the time the first light of dawn brushed the horizon, he had already made his decision. He couldn't stay, not with the world watching, not with the pain of Lani's betrayal etched into every fiber of his being. He needed to vanish, to escape, even if only temporarily, before his mind unraveled completely. He packed lightly, a backpack with essentials, a few clothes, water, and a small, worn journal he carried everywhere. His hand shook as he stuffed it all in, the tremor betraying the storm raging inside him. Each item felt like a lifeline, yet a reminder of the life he was leaving behind. Stepping into the humid dawn, Kai paused, inhaling the salty ocean air. It should have calmed him, but instead it sharpened his senses. The island seemed different in these early hours. The beaches deserted, the streets eerily quiet, the faint cries of seabirds echoing in the distance. Every sound, every movement felt amplified, as though the world itself was alert to his decision. He moved quickly, using narrow alleyways and forested paths that only locals knew. The dense undergrowth swallowed his footprints, the rugged cliffs offering cover from the few early risers who might notice him. He kept his eyes on the horizon, where the sun now climbed, glinting off the waves in sharp, blinding flashes. The beauty of the ocean was cruel in its indifference. It mocked his turmoil, reminding him that paradise could be a trap as easily as a refuge. By mid-morning, Kai reached the base of a hidden trail he had discovered months earlier while scouting locations for tours. The path was treacherous, winding through jagged rocks and thick foliage. Each step required focus, each breath a reminder that one misstep could be fatal. And yet, the danger thrilled him, awakening a raw, primal sense of control he had lost in the wake of Lani's betrayal. He paused at a ridge, surveying the small village below. Familiar streets now looked alien, hostile. He thought of Jonah, of Lani, of the endless judgment waiting online, and in whispered conversations around the island. A shiver ran down his spine. He wasn't running just from people. He was running from the life he had once believed in, from the paradise that had turned toxic overnight. Kai found an abandoned shack halfway up the ridge, hidden by overgrown bushes. Its walls were worn, its roof patched with tarps and rusted tin, but it offered temporary sanctuary. Inside, he collapsed against the floor, chest heaving, mind spinning. He checked a small journal, scribbling a quick note. If anyone finds this, I'm sorry. I couldn't stay. I had to escape. The hours passed slowly. Every sound outside, the rustle of leaves, a distant engine, the occasional bird call, set his nerves on edge. He knew the manhunt would begin soon. Jonah, his old friend, might even be involved, searching for him with the weight of duty heavy on his shoulders. And yet, Kai felt a strange sense of liberation, a fleeting clarity amidst chaos. For the first time in days, he was entirely in control of one thing: his escape. As dusk approached, he made his next move. The shadows grew long, and the forest offered better cover. He kept low, moving with careful, calculated steps toward the coastline. He planned to disappear completely, leaving no trace behind, no calls, no messages, no evidence of his route. The island, which had once felt like a paradise mask, now became a labyrinth in which he could hide. Before nightfall, Kai paused atop a rocky outcrop, staring at the darkening waves below. The moon reflected on the water like fractured silver. Somewhere in that vast expanse, he imagined freedom, a life untouched by betrayal, humiliation, or the relentless judgment of others. Yet even in that imagined sanctuary, he could feel the weight of his choices pressing down, the knowledge that the path he had chosen was irreversible. This was no longer about love, or trust, or betrayal. The escape had become survival. Every step he took from here on would be a step further into the unknown, a journey from which he might never return. With a final glance at the island lights twinkling in the distance, Kai disappeared into the forest, swallowed by darkness and the unrelenting, indifferent night. The search for Kai had begun in earnest. Jonah, his longtime friend, found himself torn between loyalty and duty. As a local officer, he was bound to uphold the law. Yet he knew Kai better than most. He understood the pain that betrayal could inflict and the way it could warp reason. Walking through the narrow streets of Maui, Jonah felt the tension in every corner. The curious glances of neighbors, the whispers of tourists, the relentless hum of social media exposing Lani's private life. Jonah, Lani's voice trembled as she stepped into the small police outpost, clutching her arms to herself. Have you heard anything? Any sign of him? Jonah studied her carefully, noting the way she avoided eye contact, the tightness in her jaw. He had known Lani for years, long enough to recognize fear, guilt, and grief when they were layered together. We're searching everywhere, he said gently. But you need to tell me everything. Every detail you know about where he might have gone. I don't know, Lani whispered, her voice cracking. He left before I could stop him. I tried to call him, but he didn't answer. I didn't think he'd actually leave. I thought he'd calm down. Jonah's heart ached for both of them. People don't just vanish, he said quietly. Not without a plan. And he's hurt, Lani. You need to understand that he's hurting badly. Meanwhile, the community buzzed with gossip, and the social media posts about the affair and Kai's disappearance escalated. Strangers speculated about motives, about whether Lani had pushed him too far, or if Kai had planned to leave long before the photos surfaced. The public exposure compounded the tension, making the manhunt feel both urgent and personal. Lani paced in the small office, wringing her hands. I never thought it would get this far. I didn't want anyone to get hurt. I didn't think he'd run. Her voice quivered, mingled with tears and guilt. It's all my fault. Jonah placed a firm hand on her shoulder. It's not all your fault, Lani. But the truth is out now, and you have to be honest. If we want to find him, we need to know everything. Lies won't help anyone. Not you, not Kai, not me. The tension in the room was palpable. Lani took a shaky breath, recounting small details she had tried to hide. Secret messages, late-night meetings, subtle signs she thought Kai hadn't noticed. Every confession felt like another stone added to the weight pressing on her chest, a testament to the consequences of hidden lives and unspoken truths. Outside, Jonah's team coordinated search efforts along the forested trails and coastal paths Kai favored. Each lead felt like a potential breakthrough, yet every hour that passed without a sighting deepened the sense of dread. The island, once a backdrop of beauty and serenity, had become a stage for fear, betrayal, and escalating tension. By dusk, Jonah stood atop a cliff overlooking the ocean, scanning the jagged coastline below. The wind whipped through his hair, carrying the scent of salt and pine, and for a moment he allowed himself to imagine Kai somewhere safe, waiting for the chaos to subside. But reality was harsher. Kai was a fugitive now, driven by rage and heartbreak, and every decision made in desperation could lead him further from safety or into danger. Lani sat nearby, head bowed, silent except for soft, choked breaths. The consequences of her choices had extended far beyond a private affair. Lies and loyalties, once hidden and assumed, had collided violently, leaving a trail of fractured trust and fractured lives. Jonah's voice broke the silence. We'll find him, Lani, but you have to be honest every step of the way. Secrets only make it harder, and the price of hiding the truth could be fatal. As night fell, the shadows deepened along the coast, and the ocean whispered against the rocks. Somewhere in the darkness, Kai moved through the forest, a fugitive in his own paradise. Lies, betrayal, and loyalty intertwined in a deadly dance, and the search had only just begun. The dense forest stretched endlessly, a labyrinth of towering palms and tangled vines. Kai moved through it silently, his senses honed to every rustle of leaves, every bird call, every snapping twig underfoot. But as he navigated the shadowed trails, his mind wandered back through years of memories that no one on the island could ever see. Kai's childhood had been far from the paradise he now fled through. His father, a strict and controlling man, had ruled their household with a rigid sense of order, where mistakes were punished more than forgiven. His mother had tried to shield him, but fear hung over their home like a storm cloud. Small betrayals, even imagined ones, had been met with anger, and from that environment had grown Kai's obsession with control, trust, and loyalty. The patterns that now dictated his actions, paranoia, suspicion, and the drive to uncover secrets, had been forged long before Lani entered his life. As he paused on a ridge overlooking the shimmering coastline, the island seemed to pulse with hidden stories. Every abandoned shack, every hidden trail, every shadowed cove held secrets that only those who looked closely could discover. And Kai, in his fugitive state, had become one of those observers. He knew the terrain intimately, using its isolation to hide, plan, and evade capture. Yet even as he relied on his knowledge, he felt the weight of inevitability pressing on him. Eventually, the island's secrets could betray him as much as they protected him. The journal he carried became a lifeline in this isolation. He scribbled entries in the margins, recounting his thoughts, his fears, and betrayal that had shattered his carefully curated life. "Trust is a luxury," he wrote, "one I cannot afford. Every smile hides a lie. Every touch carries deception." His pen scratched across the paper with a rhythm almost like a heartbeat, echoing the rhythm of the waves below. Back in town, Jonah and Lani pieced together fragments of Kai's past, searching police files and interviewing those who knew him best. They discovered patterns of obsession, early relationships marked by jealousy, and meticulousness that sometimes bordered on dangerous. The man they thought they understood, the man who seemed charming, reliable, and strong, had layers of hidden compulsions and unspoken fears. These insights explained his flight, his methods of hiding, and his obsessive need to uncover truths, no matter how painful. "Some people are shaped by the secrets they carry," Jonah remarked, looking at a map of Kai's likely routes. "And the island, it reveals them, but also protects them. We have to understand both sides if we want to find him." Lani shivered as she listened. Her guilt and fear deepened as she realized that the person she had loved, the one she had betrayed, was far more complex than she had ever imagined. It wasn't just a affair of the exposure. It was the entirety of Kai's life, the traumas and obsessions that had been building beneath the surface, unseen until now. Kai moved cautiously as the sun dipped behind the mountains, casting the forest in gold and shadow. He paused at a familiar lookout, the ocean stretching endlessly below. For a moment, he allowed himself to breathe, to feel a fleeting connection to the paradise that had betrayed him. Yet even in this temporary calm, his mind raced. Lani's betrayal was not the first secret he had uncovered in life, nor would it be the last. And the island, for all its beauty, held its own truths, ready to reveal themselves to those who dared to search. Every step forward was a negotiation between trust and suspicion, memory and reality, freedom and danger. Kai knew the forest would protect him for now, but secrets had a way of surfacing, of forcing confrontation when least expected. And somewhere out there, Jonah and Lani were closing in, carrying their own pieces of the puzzle that would eventually collide with his fugitive path. The island held its secrets close, but not forever, and soon all truths, hidden, betrayed, or long buried, would demand reckoning. Lani's hand shook as she stared at her phone, scrolling through messages from Ethan. The affair, once a secret hidden behind the illusion of paradise, now demanded reckoning. Each text, each image, each whispered conversation she had tried to dismiss now burned on the screen with the intensity of confession made public. The weight of her choices pressed down, making it hard to breathe. Jonah had urged her to be honest, but honesty had never felt like enough. Kai was missing, and she was trapped between loyalty and guilt, unable to bridge the chasm that had formed. Her mind spun, torn between fear for Kai's safety and the consequences of her betrayal. "I need to know everything," she whispered to herself, dialing Ethan's number. The line rang once, twice, before his voice, calm and deceptively warm, answered. "Lani," he said, almost casual, "I didn't expect to hear from you. Everything okay?" "No," she admitted, her voice breaking. "Kai, he knows. The photos, the messages, everything. You have to tell me. What now? What have you done?" There was a pause. Ethan's tone shifted, just enough to betray tension. I didn't plan for him to find out. You know that. We just didn't think it would go this far. You didn't think? Lani's voice cracked with fury and despair. He's gone. He's vanished. And now it's my fault. Our fault. I know, Ethan replied quietly. But listen, he's not just angry, he's unstable. He's smart, and he's dangerous when cornered. You have to be careful. Lani's stomach twisted. The warning was clear. Kai wasn't just heartbroken. He was calculating, driven by rage and betrayal. Every step he had taken so far had been deliberate, and now she realized that no matter how far he fled, the consequences of their lives would follow him and everyone they had touched. Meanwhile, Jonah followed leads along the rugged coastline, piecing together Kai's movements. He noted footprints, broken branches, and subtle signs of someone moving with purpose. Each clue painted a picture of a man both wounded and determined, a fugitive navigating the island's secrets with precision born of desperation and past trauma. Jonah, Lani's voice quavered over the phone. He's not just running. He's thinking, planning. I'm afraid for him and for all of us. I know, Jonah said, scanning the dense foliage ahead. But we have to find him before anyone else gets hurt. He's caught between truths, his, yours, mine, and it's only a matter of time before everything collides. The collision was inevitable. Kai's rage, Lani's guilt, Ethan's presence, and Jonah's pursuit all formed a web of tension ready to snap. Every decision made in isolation had consequences, and the moral lines that once seemed clear were now blurred. There was no innocence left, only degrees of complicity, choices made under duress, and the haunting weight of secrets exposed. As dusk fell over Maui, Kai paused on a cliffside trail, overlooking the ocean. The wind carried the faint sound of distant voices, search parties, perhaps, or the echo of his own fears. He clenched his fists, the weight of discovery pressing down, yet a cold clarity sharpened his focus. He had become the arbiter of his own fate, forced to navigate the labyrinth of lies, loyalties, and truths that led him here. Somewhere below, Jonah and Lani moved cautiously through the undergrowth, unaware of the exact location, but closing in with each calculated step. The lines between hunter and hunted blurred, morality and vengeance entwined, and Kai realized that the moment of confrontation, physical or emotional, was approaching. Every truth carried a price. Every secret demanded repayment. And soon, they would all face the consequences of the choices they had made. The forest was thick, shadows stretching like fingers across the narrow trail. Kai's heartbeat thundered in his ears, blending with the distant crash of waves against jagged cliff below. Every sense was heightened, smell, sight, sound, each one a weapon in his survival. He moved with quiet precision, knowing that every rustle, every snapping twig could betray him. Behind him, the faint glow of lanterns and the muffled voices of search parties, Jonah and Lani among them, crept closer. The hunt had become a game of shadows, a tension-filled dance between predator and prey. But Kai wasn't just running. He was orchestrating his disappearance, vanishing into the very heart of the island he knew better than anyone. He paused atop a rocky ridge, gazing down at the coastline, where the moonlight shimmered like fractured silver. The ocean had always been a place of solace, but tonight it was a mirror of his inner chaos, beautiful, relentless, and impossible to hold. He exhaled, realizing that he had reached a point of no return. The exposure, the betrayal, the public humiliation, all of it had led him here. He couldn't go back. Not to Lani, not to the life he had known, not even the fragile fragments of paradise he had once cherished. Below, Jonah's flashlight cut through the darkness, methodical and unwavering. Lani's soft sobs reached him faintly on the wind, mingling with the sound of waves and the distant cries of seabirds. Kai's chest tightened, not with fear, but with resolve. He had become a fugitive not just in the eyes of the law, but in the very essence of the life he had once lived. He moved to the edge of the cliff, wind whipping against his face, hair plastered to his forehead. The ocean beckoned, dark and infinite, offering both escape and absolution. For a fleeting moment, memories of Lani, the laughter, the warmth, the betrayal, flashed before his eyes. Then he let them go, the past dissolving into the night air. A sudden shout below made him freeze. Jonah's voice, commanding yet edged with concern. Kai! Stop! We're not here to hurt you. Kai's heart ached briefly at the sound of his friend's voice, a tether to the life he was leaving. But he couldn't stop. Not now. Not ever. He had been pushed to the edge by lies and betrayal, and the only way to reclaim control was to vanish entirely. He took a deep breath, feeling the salty spray of the surf on his skin, the moonlight guiding his last steps. Then, with a fluid motion, he disappeared into the shadows, slipping down a narrow, hidden crevice that led toward the rocky shore below. The rocks were jagged, treacherous, but Kai moved with the confidence of someone who knew the terrain intimately, each step deliberate, each movement calculated. The flashlight beam swept across the cliffside, but Kai was gone. The wind carried the echo of Lani's voice, the distant, frustrated calls of Jonah, but there was no trace. Only the crashing wave below and the moonlight on the water marked where he had vanished, a final testament to the life and paradise he had left behind. Hours later, Jonah and Lani reached the bottom of the cliff, breathless and exhausted. The forest seemed emptier, eerily still, as if it had swallowed Kai whole. Footprints ended abruptly at the edge of the rocks, and the trail faded into nothingness. He's gone, Lani whispered, collapsing against a boulder. Tears streamed down her face, mingling grief, guilt, and fear. How could he just vanish? Jonah remained silent, scanning the coastline, knowing that Kai's disappearance wasn't just physical. It was psychological. A man pushed to the edge, cornered by exposure, betrayal, and guilt, could vanish in ways the law and search parties could never predict. The moon reflected off the endless horizon, a silver promise of mysteries unsolved. Somewhere, out in the darkness beyond human reach, Kai was free, yet trapped by the shadows of his own making. He had vanished, leaving behind heartbreak, shattered trust, and the weight of secrets that could never be fully reconciled. Paradise had been a mask, and now it remained empty and silent, a witness to the vanishing of a man who had loved, lost, and disappeared. The island seemed quieter now, but the calm was deceptive. The waves still crashed against the rocky shore. The wind still whispered to the palms. Yet the tension that had gripped Maui for weeks lingered like a shadow. Kai had vanished without a trace, leaving behind questions, fractured relationships, and a story that no one could fully reconcile. Lani walked along the beach at sunrise, her bare feet sinking into the wet sand. The betrayal she had hidden, the affair that had exposed her deepest secrets, and the consequences of her actions weighed on her heavily. Each step felt like penance, a small attempt to balance the guilt and grief she carried. She glanced at the horizon, half expecting Kai to emerge in the waves, but the sea remained empty, indifferent to her hopes and fears. Jonah, meanwhile, combed through reports, interviewed locals, and revisited every lead. Every piece of evidence, every clue, had led to dead ends. Kai had vanished like a phantom, leaving no footprints, no messages, no sign of his next move. The search had transformed into a quiet vigil, a tense waiting game filled with uncertainty. Jonah understood that sometimes the truth was elusive, hidden in the shadows, and the most dangerous stories were those that had no closure. Lani sat on a weathered log near the edge of the sand, journal clutched in her hands. The pages recorded her confessions, her memories, and her attempts to understand the man she had loved and betrayed. "I should have been honest," she whispered, tears streaking her face. "I should have never let it get this far." She traced Kai's name across the paper, the letters almost trembling under her fingertips. News outlets had picked up the story by now, social media threads buzzing with speculation, fear, and fascination. Some called Kai a fugitive, others a victim, and some condemned Lani mercilessly. The public obsession mirrored the private chaos, amplifying every emotion, every regret, every unanswered question. Jonah approached Lani quietly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We did what we could," he said softly. "But some things, some people, they disappear, and there's nothing we can do. Kai made his choice." "I know," she replied, voice barely audible. I hoped he'd come back. I thought maybe forgiveness was possible. But now, I don't know if that's ever going to happen." Even as the island resumed its rhythm, fishermen casting nets, Tourists laughing along the shore, the sun rising in brilliant hues. The absence of Kai created a void that no sound, no light, no motion could fill. He had become a ghost, a story told in whispers, a cautionary tale of betrayal, exposure, and the fragility of trust. Yet amidst the sorrow and the unresolved questions, life continued. Lani began to rebuild, small steps at first, helping in her community, seeking counseling and reflecting on the choices that had led to such devastation. Jonah remained vigilant, the image of his friends vanishing etched into his memory, a constant reminder of how swiftly lives unravel when secrets collided with reality. On a cliff overlooking the ocean, where Kai had last been seen, the wind carried the faintest sense of movement. Was it a trick of the light, a passing bird, or Kai himself navigating a hidden path, free from the consequences he had left behind? No one could say for certain. Some truths remained elusive, some people forever vanished, and some stories ended not with resolution, but with lingering uncertainty. The island kept its secrets well, and the shadows of betrayal and flight remained quietly etched into the sands and surf. Paradise had endured, but the lives it touched would never be the same.